Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 84.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with Robert Wickersham. He is a grad student studying psychology, and he took some time out and talked to us and told us his story as how he studied psychology in the schools he attended and what applications were like, and ultimately how he ended up at grad school. So if you have a student that's interested in psychology, this would be a great episode to listen to because you learn a lot about psychology and the psychology major, but also it's just a great story for families to really understand, the many different paths out there. We've interviewed a number of students and everybody takes a little bit of a different path. So I think it's a great opportunity for parents to just hear what some of the options are and some of the interesting turns that Robert took as he went through his undergrad and ultimately ended up in grad school. As always, show notes are available at Taming the High Cost of College /84 for this episode. If you enjoy what you're hearing and you want to learn more, you can go to our website and there is a whole bunch more episodes available, including on how to pay for college, how to plan for college, test prep, and all kinds of great subjects. So again, if you're listening to this directly on the website, you can go to iTunes, Stitcher, or other podcast apps on your phone, and you're able to get all the episodes and listen to the backlog of 80 plus episodes and learn more about all kinds of college related topics. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the interview with Robert. All right, today we're sitting down with Bobby Wickersham. He's a grad student at the University of Colorado. Welcome, Bobby.
Hi.
All right, so you are a grad student and you graciously volunteered to tell us a little bit about your story, so to speak, as far as how your college journey kind of started and where you went and how it all came to be. So why don't we jump right in? Why don't you start kind of at the beginning? Where'd you grow up and, kind of some of the basics of high school and that kind of thing?
Well, I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, but I actually switched high schools my junior year to a school in Orange County, California.
Okay.
And I did the International Baccalaureate program. So when I was junior and senior applying to colleges, I was doing a mix of AP and IB courses to be competitive.
And then ultimately, where did that lead you as far as an undergrad then?
Ultimately, I got into UCLA and I went into undergraduate in psychology.
All right. So when you were at UCLA, you were an in-state student?
I was. That was actually the silver lining of moving halfway through high school, is that I had kind of been in California just long enough to be in-state.
All right. Well, great. So, and then what did you study in your undergrad?
Actually, at UCLA, there are so many people trying to be psychology majors that you can't officially be in the major till your third year. So you're actually in competition to be in the major. And I ended up specializing initially in social psychology. I was involved with a lot of research on mirror neurons, and I did some social justice work. Mm-hmm. And then one thing that I did that was really helpful in terms of standing out for applications was I went and studied abroad for a year in Italy.
Okay, so that was during your undergrad college days?
Yes, that was during undergraduate.
Were you a freshman, sophomore, junior? Where
I was junior when I went abroad.
Okay.
And something that I did when I was abroad that ended up being really helpful is I took a course called Intercultural Communication, and I had a professor who was from USC originally, which is the rival college of UCLA. Mm-hmm. And I ended up talking to this professor outside of class, and we ended up doing like a academic project together, which I was able to kind of tie in on my applications and everything to be like, well, even when I was studying abroad, I was working on academic pursuits, and it kind of helps you build a narrative for when you're writing your applications.
So you studied abroad in Italy for a year in your junior year, and then ultimately you graduated from UCLA,
Hmm.
and now you're a grad student. So where are you studying now?
Now I'm at the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs, and now I'm in a clinical PhD program. I did take a few years off to go teach English so that I could actually travel a little bit while being able to pay off some of my student loans from undergraduate.
Oh, okay. So and where did you do that?
I ended up going to Taiwan because it's very like first world quality of life, and you can make enough money to pay off loans, save, and travel while also becoming more competitive for graduate school.
Wow, it pays that well. Okay. I didn't
Uh,
realize that.
yeah, well, like you get like usually around $20 an hour, and then you work like 30 hours a week. But like the average rent in Taiwan is like 200 a month, and food is like $1 or so. So it ends up that you're able to live very comfortably and also save a lot of money.
Hmm. And then what were your duties then as far as when you those 30 hours a week that you're working? You're like head of a classroom kind of thing?
Yeah, so yeah, you get training usually over a few weeks. You kind of have to take the leap and go to Taiwan. You get the training, and then yeah, you're managing classrooms usually between like 5 to as many as 30 of different age Taiwanese children, just teaching them English.
Oh, okay. So it's children that are learning English. I guess my preconceived notion it was adults that were trying to learn English, but I guess that would work
That
too.
is an option, but the market, there's definitely a lot more people looking for teachers of the children because over there they're really focused on being competitive globally for college. So they start really working on that early.
Right. Now, is it everybody rank and file that's doing this type of thing, or is it kind of the wealthy that are, or upper class or whatever, that are having their children learn English?
Almost everybody. The norm there is to speak at least three languages. But if you want to be competitive, you want to know like four or five.
Wow.
So yeah, so almost everybody. It's like different quality of the English schools are usually called Bushiban schools.
Hmm.
So pretty much everybody that can afford it finds some level of that to go to.
Okay. So let's rewind all the way back to the beginning now, since we kind of know the steps that you've taken. And
Hmm.
let's talk about what you were applying to undergrad. So when you're
Yes.
a junior and senior in high school,
Hmm.
did you know psychology was the direction you were going all the way back then, or were you more of an undecided type of student?
I kind of knew when I switched high schools, my new school didn't have a psychology class, which I was really disappointed about. So I actually started a psychology club, and then the club really took off, and we petitioned the school to get a class. So then by my senior year, we had a class, and I loved it. So I was pretty certain that that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. I guess another question: when you transferred schools, do you feel like and again, I don't know what happened with your grades, but do you feel like that hurt you or helped you, or
Oh,
colleges don't really
definitely.
care about it as far as having two different transcripts, etc.?
So I think on like the essays and stuff, like hearing that I switched through high school, I think helped me. But in terms of grades, it actually hurt me because my school in Boulder, Colorado, was actually on a different, like a 5.0 grading scale because they were honors classes. So
Hmm.
the grades were supposed to be inflated by like a letter. But then transferring that didn't translate. So basically all my grades went down a level.
Right. And then did you do academically? Just as far as if you're willing to share, like,
Yeah,
you know what
I'd
your
say
test scores were back
A's
then,
and
or
B's. A's and B's.
A's and B's? Okay. Do you remember how you did on? Did you take the SAT or ACT?
Yes, I took the SAT and I did pretty well. I got a 2020 on the new version.
Okay. So that would be the 2400 is the
Yes,
top
that's
score. Okay. Yep. And then how many did you do a lot of prep and did you take it multiple times?
I actually only took it once, but I did do the prep. The prep is so key. I think I did the Kaplan. So there's the way I see it, there's two ways to go for prepping for those tests. Either you get a Kaplan book yourself that has like a CD in it that you can do at home, which is really good. Or if you have a little more funds, then I recommend doing one of the classes like the Princeton Review with a student that's really kind of unlocked the test and can teach you strategies for the test.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that wasn't the end of your testing because you went on to grad school. I think you took more testing, right?
Oh yeah, it never ends.
So what tests in addition to was it the GRE or were there other tests you took or?
Yeah, so for grad school in clinical psychology, yeah, you had to do the GRE and you had to do advanced GRE like subjects, so a Psych GRE class as well. So yeah, I did both of those.
And then ultimately, is there accreditation in your field? When you're all done, do you need to go on and pass some sort of board or something, kind of like a doctor might or a lawyer?
Yes, it is kind of like that. Basically, the clinical psychology PhD program is 6 years after, in addition to to undergraduate. So it's 5 years of writing your master's and your dissertation and getting a bunch of hours of clinical experience. And then your 6th year, you go work in a clinic somewhere in the country for a full year. And then after all that, you finally take a big, scary licensure exam. And then if you pass, you get licensed and accredited and all that good stuff.
Okay. So let's say I'm a parent of a 17-year-old, a junior, who's saying, I think I want to major in psychology. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had a number of parents, and typically the parents don't know a lot about psychology. They're engineers or accountants or business people, and they're saying, what do you do with a psych degree? And I mean, I certainly know of psychologists, but they have PhDs. So what are the kind of the avenues in the psychology realm as far as what are your options if you're an undergrad, or do you recommend undergrad, or is everybody going on for master's and PhD? Or
with psychology, it's really important to think ahead with where you want to go with your career because there's not a lot of options for just an undergraduate degree in psychology. With something like that, you can go like I did, teach abroad, but you need to think ahead. So your options are, if your kid is really into psychology, they need to sit down and decide if they want eventually a PsyD or a PhD. And that's a really important distinction.
Can you explain what you just said there?
Yes.
What does that
so
mean?
A PsyD is a higher degree in psychology where you don't do research or you do very, very little. So it focuses primarily on being a clinician and helping people, but not much research. On the flip side, a PhD still focuses on clinic work and helping people, but there's a much bigger research component in addition to that. So you're kind of publishing. And
what are you pursuing?
I'm pursuing the PhD because I enjoy research in addition to teaching and clinical work.
Okay, so when you say research, I think of two things. One is the rats in the maze, and then the other is a bunch of professors with patches on their elbows, bringing in a bunch of undergrad students and asking them weird questions with a clipboard kind of stuff. Is that at all accurate? The mice piece isn't so common in my experience these days, but you definitely do come up with ideas, and usually we'll run them with undergraduate volunteers. Mm-hmm. But what's kind of happening right now in the field of like doing experiments in psychology, which is kind of cool, is more and more people are using the internet and are using a program called Amazon's MTurk to recruit subjects through the computer. So I don't know. So like an experiment might look like
Okay, let's show people a picture of, an older adult versus a younger adult, and then let's ask them questions about how competent or how warm, they think they are based on maybe their age and their attractiveness, something like that.
Mhm.
You set it up, you give it to the people you want, and then you put it into software to look at your results.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you're studying things like bias and
Yeah,
whether.
there's a lot of different directions. So when I was at UCLA, so this is another important thing. If you want to go to a higher degree in psychology, you need research experience. That is so key. If your kid wants to go into psychology, they need to be willing as an undergraduate. I mean, if possible, their first year, but definitely by their sophomore year, they need to be volunteering in research labs. That is so key.
As in being the guinea pig or doing some type of work?
It's doing the grunt work, basically. You kind of have to work your way up the totem pole. So the first thing I did actually was like morphing people's faces. I learned how to use this program to morph people's faces together, and then I was like entering data my first year.
Mm-hmm. And then
But
who are you doing this for then? I mean, who, like a professor at the school or another grad student or?
Yeah, so as an undergraduate, you usually are dealing with a grad student or a professor, and then generally, as they trust you more, you sometimes get to sit in lab meetings, and then ultimately, if you leave a good impression, either the grad student, in combination with the professor will write you a letter of recommendation, and that's one of probably the biggest piece for getting into graduate program in clinical psychology is research experience.
Okay. Let's go kind of rewind back to the undergrad again.
Okay.
So were you conscious and aware that what you were doing was going to help you get into grad school, or did you just happen to do it and it worked out well?
I knew that I had asked advisors, and I knew that I had to do a lot of research to be able to to be competitive to get into grad school.
So when did you, as an undergrad, when did you know that you were going to be going on to grad school, or did you right at the beginning, were you there?
Right as I got in, I knew I had to make the decision between PsyD and PhD. So my first year, I went to like all the information I could get on that and ultimately made the decision. And then I was just kind of on that track.
Right. So how did you, when you were, I guess, originally looking at undergrad and ended up at UCLA, do you remember how many other schools you considered? How many others you applied to? I mean, did you do a far and wide search? I mean, or was it kind of this one was convenient and close or something?
Well, being that we had just moved to California and we had just gotten in-state there, I basically applied to all the UC colleges. So, Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego, and just kind of all of those schools.
Mm-hmm. And that was it, as far as you didn't look at any privates or other options?
No, I was just really impressed with those schools. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go for these. It makes the most sense financially.
Right.
So, and yeah, I was really happy in the end with my decision.
Right. And then how many were you ultimately accepted at?
So I think there's like 9 UCs or something like that, maybe 10 around there. The only ones I didn't get into were Berkeley and UC San Diego, but I got into all the rest.
Right. Okay. So now you've got 6-8 schools to choose from. How did you ultimately decide which one was the one?
A big consideration was which was the most kind of exclusive and hard to get into, which was definitely UCLA. But also, I knew that the school really specialized in psychology and was really known for it. So that was also went into my consideration.
Okay. Tell me about a typical, well, maybe not typical, but tell me about what undergrad at UCLA was like. How many psych majors were there?
Oh, man. So, yeah, there were so many psych majors. Like I was saying to you earlier, that like you couldn't actually be in the major until you proved that like your grades were in the top 50th percentile or whatever it was, the cutoff. And then everyone else had to change majors to like communications or something else.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very competitive, a lot of very large classrooms, like 200, 300 students. One of the things is UCLA is kind of a research institution in a lot of ways. So some of the professors are like primarily research people, and then they go in to teach a class. And you can really kind of tell that sometimes, but
I'm gonna have to stop you there because I think a lot of people think about the professor that does great research but barely speaks English and quote unquote can't teach. Was that something you experienced? Whether it's language barriers or just not skilled?
On one or two occasions. It wasn't the norm by any means, but there were one or two classes where it didn't seem like the professor excelled at teaching, I could say.
Right. And then did you have to deal a lot with teaching assistants as well, or? Yeah, for small groups and things like that. Yeah, we did have to deal with teaching assistants. But I mean, those teaching assistants are usually the people that you're going to be trying to work with to get the research experience. Right. Okay. So then about how many, you said there's a lot. What can you, it's like 300, 400, 500 or?
You mean like in the major?
Right. In the major or, right.
There's thousands.
Thousands. Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to misquote the exact number, but there's a lot. It's a really big school.
Right. Okay. And then at some point you get, they weed out some of the, and when was that? Was that like, you said the end of the junior year or end of sophomore year?
I think it was, end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year. They like see how you stack up against everyone. And then they let you know if you're allowed to keep that as your major.
And then ultimately, once you were in the major,
mm-hmm.
How long did you graduate in 4 years?
I did. I graduated in 4 years, and the total time, I graduated in 2011, and then I was accepted into graduate school class of 2015. So there's, I guess, 4-year gap between total.
Right. So then another rumor we hear out there is that if you go to a big state school, it's really hard to get done in 4 years. Obviously you did it in 4, but so I want to delve into that a little bit more. Did you show up at UCLA with credits because of your IB or AP work? Yes. Yeah. I actually showed up as a sophomore with in terms of credits. But what was cool was that allowed me to kind of prioritize my learning over filling, classes that had to be taken. Right. It also gave me some room when I studied abroad that not all of my classes needed to directly transfer, which again allowed me to kind of prioritize learning. So, I had a similar experience. I studied abroad in London. Mm-hmm. Long time ago. I mean, back when the wall fell down, I was actually there that weekend. So that gives you some idea how long ago I was in Europe. But I had that same situation where I was able to take, go and have fun and take some interesting courses, but they really didn't apply to my major. Yeah, exactly. They didn't have that. I had an engineering degree, so they didn't have high-level engineering. And I'm guessing similarly, you couldn't take a whole lot of high-level psych, so you ended up taking history, and I took history and theater and all kinds of interesting things in London, right? History of London, history of theater in London, Shakespeare, all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah. All right, so if you didn't have, so those credits that you got because of the IB and AP, did they actually help you graduate, or did they just help you be an upperclassman quicker so you could register sooner, or both? Kind of both. They also they make it so you don't have to take a lot of classes. Like I was able to fulfill all my necessary science courses by the end of my first year. And then before the end of my second year, I was able to start really going into mostly psych classes every semester or quarter as it was. Okay. Well, great. If I wanted to follow a path either to the, what did you say, PsyD or? PsyD or PhD. PhD. Okay. So if I'm thinking I'm going to run down that path, what are things that I should be doing if I'm still in high school, or if parents should be reminding their students or teaching their students about if they're still in high school?
Well, a great thing to do is to get some kind of teaching experience, or, find some kind of, be involved in some kind of job or something where you're tutoring or you're helping students or anything like that, that ultimately you can tie into kind of preparing you to one day be a PhD or a PsyD in psychology, because teaching is a big part of that. If you can kind of justify any jobs you've had or anything like that and fit it into the narrative of you getting towards that path, and then if you put that into your essays for undergraduate or graduate, that really gives you an edge, I feel.
Okay. And then once you're off to college, then you need
to make the big decision, like which graduate degree you want to pursue, and then you really need to get involved with research as fast as you can.
All right. And then let's talk a little bit about ultimate careers. I think a lot of, if parents aren't in the job area, right? So if you're looking at psychology with your student and you happen to be an engineer, you know so little about it, you kind of often wonder, it's like, well, what do you be when you grow up if you get that type of major? So can you give me some ideas of beyond? I mean, I think most of us know about the psychologists that meet with, kids or families or marriage counseling or all those types of things, the kind of the counselor, but what else or what other directions might you go?
Generally, the most profitable thing to do with the degree is to be, like you just said, in private practice as a clinician, seeing, people. But what's cool about a clinical psychology degree is you have a really large amount of flexibility. You can work as a professor. You can work in a hospital setting, kind of doing like emergency psych evaluations. You can work on integrated health teams is a big thing that's kind of blowing up right now. So like you have a shared file with maybe like a nutritionist, primary care provider, and you all kind of work together to manage people's health. You can really focus on research. You can really focus on teaching. Yeah, there's a lot of options you can balance. You can spend some of your time teaching, some of your time doing research, and then some of your time seeing clients on the side, which is what a lot of people do. They start being a professor somewhere, and then they'll see with some of their spare time, maybe they'll do 10 to 20 hours of clinical practice and teach 1 or 2 classes. And it's just, you have so many options right now. Our field is really expanding, and there's a lot of things you can do with the degree once you get it.
And where do you see yourself going?
Well, I really like teaching. I really like research. Right now I'm probably looking at being an undergraduate professor, and then doing clinical practice on the side.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what I'm looking at right now. Another thing that's important is choosing a specialty area in your field. So, my PhD's in clinical psychology, but I'm specializing in older adults or geropsychology. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. It's really important to have a specialty within whatever you're specializing in.
Okay. Well, great. I really appreciate you sharing your story. Is there anything, before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to add that would help parents or students that are, considering psychology in their future?
Yeah, I would just want to let parents and students know that, even if you have a strike against you, like maybe your GPA is low or your, SATs or GREs weren't great, there's always, where there's a will, there's a way, and you can really, if you don't lose hope, you can compensate for that, and you can still get into really competitive programs.
Great. Well, I appreciate all the great information. I guess we'll take it from there. I guess I didn't ask this ahead of time, but if people have questions or they want to contact you, would that be all right? And if so, Sure. Where would they reach you? Twitter or Facebook or something?
Yeah. Yeah, you could find me on Facebook. Sure.
Okay.
Or they could shoot me an email.
All right. You want to share your email?
Sure. Yeah. So my email is Wickers, so Wickers at uccs.edu.
All right, great. We'll put that in the show notes. So if people didn't quite catch it, they can go to the show notes and it'll be there.
Great.
But all right, I appreciate all the great information, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. All right, that was a great interview. Hopefully you learned a ton about grad school and psychology major, etc. I just want to take a quick minute and remind you that we on our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/EFC, that will take you to a calculator that will help you figure out if you can qualify for need-based aid, and if you do qualify, for how much. Now, some people think the calculator is a little bit complicated, so I did try and make it easy. There's 3 or 4 videos right on that website that talk about need-based aid and what to do if you're in a divorce situation and how the inputs work for the calculator, and a getting started video. So there's videos there that will teach you what you need to know in order to be effectively use the calculator. So if you're very into it, if you're an accountant or an attorney or someone that spends a lot of time working with numbers and calculators, you can probably just jump right in and go to work. If it's a little bit new to you, you certainly can watch the videos and read the entire page where there's lots of great information that'll help get you up to speed so that you can effectively understand how financial aid is going to work, and more specifically, how financial aid is going to work for your particular situation based on your family finances. So hopefully you find the calculator useful. Again, that's at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/EFC for the EFC calculator. And EFC is your expected family contribution, and it's a way that you can calculate how much need-based aid you're eligible for by going to our website. All right, that's all we have for this week. I appreciate you listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns 2 companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.